For those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter Lee. I'm editorial director for Georgia Gov, also account manager for some of the state agencies who use Drupal as the content management platform. So some of you all know me from there. So Nikhil has teed things up pretty easily for me. If we actually sold a lot of these products, this would be a really good opportunity to make some sales, because Nikhil has really showed a need for usability here. And so it's my job to really show you how you can evaluate your website and how you can try to fix some of the problems that you might find. So unfortunately, we don't sell any of these products. We can actually help you with some of these, but I want to try to show you a little bit about how you can make your website more usable, more useful, more credible, more accessible. And so we'll probably go through about 6 or 7 different types of tests, different types of evaluations. They're very low cost. Some are free. Actually, most are free to a certain extent. So it's easy to do. Some of them are even easy to fix and implement, and I'll go through that as well. Nikhil mentioned the first one that I really want to talk about, and that's just simple usability testing. He mentioned Steve Krug, the Don't Make Me Think, and the other book, it's not Rocket Surgery, isn't that the name of it? Yeah. So he's actually got 2 books out that we highly recommend. They're really easy reads. You can read it within an hour or 2. Usability testing is pretty easy to do. You can probably go to a lot of different agencies around Atlanta, pay tens of thousands of dollars to get these really cool 2-way mirrors where you can observe the people. You can have eye tracking studies going on. You can have video cameras, you can have transcripts of everything that they say and detailed reports as to what actually goes on. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Or you can read Steve Krug's books, buy them for like $10 each, buy a gift card to the Olive Garden so you can actually pay some of your recipients if they like the Olive Garden. And that's really it. It's usability testing on a dime. And all you really need is just a few people, just as few as 5 people to test your website. Sit them down at a computer with your site and give them a few tasks. Say, for instance, if you're with public health, sit them down at the computer and say, okay, find your local public health office and see what happens. Find out what the qualifications are for applying for temporary assistance for needy families if you're with DHS. See what happens. And that's all you do. Watch the person use your website. You can encourage them to actually say some things out loud like, oh, well, I'm not sure where to click here. This says find us, contact us. This says location, so I'm not really sure. You can actually get them to, you can find out a lot of information just about listening to them. But as Nikhil said, you don't say a word. If they ask you, gosh, I don't know what to do, you just kind of shrug your head and say, yeah, okay. And so you're actually learning that there's a problem. Nikhil also mentioned this phenomenon, where you're actually the designer. You created this website, you think it's the best thing ever, and then you sit a user in front of it and they can't find anything. And I have been in that situation where I've been in one of those expensive 2-way mirrors and I'm on the other side going, no, it's right there, click, right there. And they're just going, looking around and they can't find what they're looking for. And of course, my first thought is, complete idiot, I can't believe that. And then it really turns into a humbling experience where you go, I didn't do this right. I thought I knew that was a pretty obvious place to put the link. In this particular case, it was the old Georgia.gov, if you all remember that from 2010, 2011, that had about 75 links on it. And they just couldn't find it. It was a complete mess because we just had too much stuff on there. So it was very humbling for us. We realized that even though we thought we were trying to put everything out there, trying to get everything for everybody, people couldn't find stuff. So even though you might think that you're building something good and that you're meeting people's needs, Watching someone use your website is just an amazing experience. So, and you can do this anywhere. I mean, go visit your parents. Believe me, that's interesting to try to get your parents to do anything on the computer. I just talked to my parents the other day, and I told them I was coming out this weekend, and my dad said, "Great. Now there's this thing with Picasa that I need to talk to you about." So every time I go up there, I'm having to work on something with the computer there, and but that's just the way that some people use computers. They're just not comfortable with them, and you've got to make things as comfortable as possible for them. You can't assume anything. And so usability testing really gives you a first-hand look at what people are doing when they come to your site. Let's talk about information architecture for a little bit. We like to throw out that word a lot, information architecture, and then we get this glazed look in people's eyes, like, what? And then we realize, oh, well, that's the menu. That's the stuff at the top. That's the horizontal thing or the vertical thing. And they go, oh, yeah, oh, okay. So information architecture really is just a fancy way of saying the way your site is organized, the way your site is structured, how you get to things from the front page. And that usually involves some sort of menu that you'll click on and drill down deeper into the site. In the past, we've used what's called a card sort to organize a site. And again, it involves users. You don't try to figure out the best way to organize your site. You try to get your users to figure out how they would organize it. If any of you all have had kids or can think back to when you were 4 or 5 years old, there used to be a set of cards that you could get that had different kinds of nouns and verbs on it, and you could have, cars and animals, and then you could just kind of group the cards, and it just kind of shows you the difference between different types of words, and it's a good educational tool for kids to do. That's basically what a card sort does, except it's on a little higher level. What you do is you take index cards and you put the title of every single page on your site, and give the cards to a user and say, organize this the way you might see fit. If you were doing this website, how would you organize all of this material? And as you can see here, you've got things like help is all by itself. They weren't really sure what else to put underneath help. Contacts, they put press releases, software requirements. I mean, people can do it so many different ways. Let's take, for example, if you were designing an automobile website. Some people might try to design things by how people use cars. Some people like trucks. Some people like cars. Some people want to do it by make and model. All right, here's the Toyota Prius. Here's the Camry. Some people would even maybe go, well, I like all the blue cars. Here's the red cars. A lot of different ways, but once you start getting 10 to 15, maybe 20 people to start doing these card sorts, you'll start noticing some patterns. And that's when it really comes in handy. You're starting to get toward that maybe 80-20 rule where you're figuring out that, yeah, I'm meeting a lot of the people's needs here by organizing it in this fashion. And that's the usefulness of a card sort, is you're getting the user to organize it the way they want to. There are 2 types of card sorts that you can do. One is an open card sort, and one is a closed card sort. Usually use the open card sort first. And this is actually a screenshot of a website that does card sorts for you. You don't actually have to use the index cards anymore. That's old school. You don't have to put them down on a table anymore. There's one, I think it's in the handout, called Concept Codify, conceptcodify.com. And you can basically give the URL. You create the card sort, you create the actual pieces of content, the cards, give a recipient or a user the URL and have them conduct the experiment online. A lot easier. You can send it out to your friends. You don't actually have to be there. And the website actually captures all the information for you. For some of these sites, you can do maybe the first one for free. The first 10 the first 10 users you get for free, and then it's just priced usually per month, or some are actually done per user as well. So this is a good example of how it would look online. And you would actually take, it's all drag and drop. So you would take this, move it over to here, and it's all done pretty easily. So in this particular one, this is an open card sort because the testers actually get to name the subjects. Obviously, this person has decided to divide the foods up between fruits and vegetables. Makes pretty good sense to me. And so they can name the categories, I guess, fruits and vegetables. So that gives you an opportunity to see what types of subjects that they would give to each of your navigation items. Open card sort. Once you come up with this, then you can actually perform a closed card sort where you come up with your own test or sample menu. Vegetables, fruits, breads, pastas, whatever you want. If you're doing a food website, give people the same cards again and see if what you have done in terms of making your menu makes sense, or if there are some things that people just still can't put in the box, as Nikhil said earlier. There's maybe some miscellaneous stuff that you still don't know where it goes. So this is what a closed card sort might look like. You've already named vegetables and fruits, and you just get the people to put the topics and the content in the right area. This is, of course, an extremely easy one. I've done some card sorts, and you can imagine, think of your government agency, think of your website, think of all the content that you have. It's not going to be broccolini and pears. It's going to be a lot more difficult. And that's really where the disadvantage of card sorts comes in. If you've got a really small site, if you've got, say, 30 to 50 pages, it's going to be pretty easy to do a card sort. Maybe 15 minutes for a person to sit down and actually organize all of the content. If you've got, is public health here? I think 5,000 pieces of content. You don't want to do a card sort with 5,000 pieces of content. I don't think any of your users would actually get through 200 cards with that type of card sort. So it's really difficult to do a large site. You may want to try to do it piecemeal per section. Card sorts are good if you have similar types of content. If it's a database of fact sheets, you've got a lot of different fact sheets, then you can organize those fact sheets by topic pretty easily. If you've got just a lot of lists of services, really easy to do that. But with a government agency, again, we've got programs, services, rules and regulations, policies, board meeting minutes, a lot of different types of content, and we're getting requests through the Drupal content management system to create even more types of content. So lots of things, lots of ways that you can organize this content, and it can tend to get kind of convoluted because there are so many ways to organize it. You can organize it by content, you can organize it by the subject, you can organize it many, many different ways, and so the results aren't going to be as good as you want. The complexity of the content. Say, for instance, if you're doing a card sort for a fast food restaurant, you may see things like menu items, nutritional information, specials and coupons. I mean, we've all been to fast food restaurants, so we know how it works. We know what's there. We probably know all the content that's on that type of site. If you go to some regulatory website that you've never seen before, there's going to be lots of content that the user just may not understand. And I don't know where this goes. I don't even know what this means. So it's going to be hard for them to really try to put this in a bucket, in some sort of topic and say, yeah, I think it should go here. And finally, one I didn't actually put on this table is if you actually haven't vetted your content, if you haven't done a content audit in forever, there may be some old, outdated content that just isn't relevant anymore. I mean, what if you've got the past 5 years, the winners of the chili cook-off in your agency? Sorry, Pooja. Pooja just won our chili cook-off for GTA a couple months ago. And we have that on our SharePoint intranet, but we don't have it on the GTA website. But taking it to an extreme, of course. But if you've got content that just isn't really relevant, people are going to have to try to organize that content somehow. And is that really content that you want on your website to begin with? So something to think about when you're wanting to do a card sort. Get it down to the content that you actually want. And that kind of brings me to a different type of way to organize your website, and it's through something called task analysis. This was one of these things where we actually did it before we realized that it was a concept. When we were redesigning Georgia Gov, we knew that the old way of organizing things into topics just wasn't working. Remember the old Yahoo where you would, if you wanted to find something out about punk rock, you would go to arts and entertainment, then go to music, and then go to genres of music, and then you'd finally find punk rock. I mean, that was usually the way it worked. Very topic-based, very hierarchical. And we wanted to try to get away with that, so away from that. So what we did was we started looking at what did people really use Georgia.gov for? We looked at user satisfaction surveys. We looked at search data. Why were people coming to our site? What were people searching for when they got to our site? What were the most popular pages? And then we started figuring out, oh, this is what GeorgiaGov should be about. People were coming because they wanted to go to your agency sites. They wanted to come because they came to our site looking for child support information. They came looking for cities and county information. We had this big argument about whether we should include information on local cities and towns and counties. I was like, no, we're state government. We shouldn't be doing that. We got the data back, and a lot of people were coming wanting to know, how to contact City Hall in Hayhire, Georgia. They don't care whether it's local or state or federal. I mean, we were even getting a lot of information about how to contact the IRS. And of course, if you're a typical bureaucrat, you should say, well, that's not my job. Here's the IRS. But we're trying to help people out as much as possible and giving them that information. And so we included information on that as well. So task analysis is developed by a businessman, Jerry McGovern, who wrote a book called The Stranger's Long Neck. If you've ever heard of The Long Tail, that's a very popular book in technology and business. But this kind of goes the other way, in which he says that the top 5 things that your users do on a website account for a great deal of the overall traffic that your site gets, the overall functions that your users perform. So the concept here is to come up with that list through customer satisfaction surveys, through your analytics, of tasks that people can perform. Well, you may say, well, we don't really have a lot of tasks on our website. We're more information-based. But if you think about it, if you're looking for information on, say, rabies or influenza, your task there is to find out what do I need to do if I think my dog has rabies, what do I need to do to prevent from getting the flu. That's still a task-based exercise. So McGovern advocates getting a long list of everything that can happen. And it's really a popularity contest from that standpoint. You get your users in a room again and have them vote on what they think is the most important task that they see your site actually doing. And so this also helps determine what's going to go on your homepage. Nikhil did a great job of mentioning things that shouldn't go on your homepage. And we always joke a lot about some of the things that we see on other states where people always have a message from the governor. They always have the picture of the governor. We've been very fortunate that all the governors that we've served under have said, no, don't worry about that. So we're trying to put the most relevant information on the front page. And so if you do something like a task analysis, you're actually finding out what people really want to see there. And when you're determining your menu items, you now know the important topics that people are looking for as well. And so you can actually cascade down from there all of your other content based on those most popular items. This is from McGovern's book, actually, where I think it was a British health agency who was wanting to reorganize their website. And so he did exactly what I was talking about earlier, where took a long list of all the tasks that people could actually do on the website, and then just asked people to vote it on him. He's got some interesting formulas, you know, the cumulative vote and cumulative care words. I won't get into his methodology there, but basically, those were the top 8 things that people were looking for. You know, what are the symptoms of a disease? What are some basic facts about conditions of disease? How do I book an appointment online? The top 8 tasks there got as many votes as the bottom 44 combined. So that shows that long neck, that this is what really people were looking for. And sure, some of these other things may be important to some people, but a majority of the people were looking for those things right there. So you've got a starting point right there for your information architecture. Okay, let's talk about our secret sauce. The thing that we love at Georgia Gov the most, that has really, I think, given us the most benefit, that we love to work with. And that's a company called Crazy Egg. We're not a partner with Crazy Egg. We're not advocating the use of them. It's just that this is what we use. There are a couple of other competitors out there, but the use that we have gotten out of click data is just amazing. I mean, wouldn't it be nice to know what people are actually clicking on your website? You can get a little bit of that through Google Analytics. You can see, okay, here are all the second level pages, and this one got the most. With Crazy Egg and some of the other companies out there, you can actually see your website and turn on this, turn on the software. It's just a little piece of code, and actually if you use Drupal through our platform, there's a little module that will actually put the code on the site for you. Turn it on for a couple of days, turn it off. And what it does is it generates a heat map that shows all the popular links on your website. There's even a cooler version on Crazy Egg called Confetti that shows every single click that somebody clicks on your website. If somebody clicks on Nathan Deal's ear on the governor's website, there it is right there. It's really detailed, but the heat map is the most useful because it actually focuses in on the links and shows you what people are clicking on. When we redesigned Georgia Gov back in April 2012, we wanted to see whether we had really gotten the right links up on the homepage, because we really thought it was important to try to get the most important information up there on the page. So we turned it on, Georgia Gov, for a couple of days, turned it off, and this was the report that we got. So if you've ever seen any kind of heat map like this before, white, yellow indicates very hot areas. Reds and blues are not so popular. So you can't obviously read a lot of this because some of these things are just white hot. So I'll just try to point out a couple of the big things. This one, under popular topics, I think this should be for a shirt. We haven't given a shirt away, have we? Pooja, can we give a shirt away? What do you think this is? All right, I heard child support here and here. Can we give 2 shirts away? That was sort of at the same time. Okay, child support. Very good. I think it's something, Kendra, we looked it up yesterday. 16% of all the clicks on the front page were just child support. Pretty amazing that one little area was getting that many clicks. We tried to really focus our new website on search. So we're seeing a lot of people clicking in here, and it's interesting, you know, some people are clicking here, some people are clicking here to get into the search box, but people were starting to search more. We loved that. We knew from our data that people wanted to find your agency. So this was a link for agencies, getting a lot of clicks there, and then of course there are the cities and counties. We made that pretty apparent. Our original information architecture was based on topic. Even though we were trying to get away from that, we knew that people may want to try to drill down a little bit and find driver's license data or try to find information on what schools are in their district. So we wanted still to try to keep a little bit of that. And as you can see, some of these links were getting hit. where's my mouse? This here is government, which really doesn't say a lot because we're all government. So I think people were just clicking on that going, oh yeah, I'm looking for something in government. Some of these others, education, environment, public safety, transportation. The one that didn't get the most hits was environment. So we wanted to take a look at environment and see what was going on there. Here's the second level, what we call the landing page for environment. But something interesting that we noticed was that the one just to the right of environment, government, got the most clicks. That's kind of interesting. So we looked at some other ones. Here's the one for revenue. Some people are still clicking on revenue. I'm not quite sure why they were doing that, but the most popular link on the menu item was the one just to the right of revenue. So we looked at every single one of the second level landing pages and figured out that people were just going down the menu bar, just clicking, trying to find what they were looking for. We call that pogo sticking, where people are just hopping around just trying to find something and they can't find what they're looking for. So we knew this, even though people were clicking on it, clicking on something doesn't really mean that you're being successful. They weren't finding anything. They weren't finding what they were looking for. So we knew we really had to change that whole paradigm of topic-based navigation. I was actually wanting to get rid of navigation, but still about 50% of people browse, 50% people search. So we had to have something. This is the current Georgia Gov page. Well, from a month ago. There's the Christmas tree up in the Capitol. We've changed that now. We did another Crazy Egg study, and based on the old version, we made popular topics a little bit bigger so that it would be a little bit more apparent. Searches is even higher up on the page so that people can see that immediately. And then what we did with the horizontal menu was we actually took what the whole task analysis concept and moved the most popular tasks up into the menu. It's a very shallow site now. There's not a lot of content on Georgia Gov. So some of those menu items at the top are repeated throughout the home page: cities and counties, agencies, popular topics, elected officials. And Christina, that first one is agencies, right? The really bright one? Yes. So people are clicking on agencies up here in the nav bar. They're clicking on agencies here. We thought it might be a good idea just to show the most viewed agencies, DHS, Department of Labor, based on the statistics that we saw through Google Analytics. And some people are clicking on them, but still that bottom link, view all agencies. They're just wanting to see everybody. We've got agencies, I think, in 4 different places. If you go on down, I think it's in the footer as well. And they're clicking on all of them. I mean, wherever they're finding it, they're clicking on it. And so making it viewable in different places, we're finding is a good advantage for that. And so Crazy Egg has really helped us look at what's being clicked on, what's not, and maybe what we should try to fix, what we should take off the home page, and maybe what we should even add. Who has read this book? Blink. Malcolm Gladwell. One person? One? T-shirt? Okay. All right, we have another one over here. Okay. Well, you already got a T-shirt. Blink. Malcolm Gladwell has written several books. The Tipping Point is another one, and it's an interesting book. It's kind of disturbing, I think, in some ways, in that we make a lot of snap judgments. We make a lot of decisions without thinking, make a lot of decisions based on first impressions, and what's surprising is a lot of those decisions, based on those gut instincts, are usually correct. First impressions are a big thing, especially when it comes to your website. There's an actual website called 5-Second Test, 5secondtest.com. What this does is you put up an image of your website. Maybe it's a home page, maybe it can be an image of any page you want on your site. Throw it up there, and users can actually collect what's called karma points by giving feedback on other people's images and designs. And so you collect these karma points. If you get enough karma points, you can add up your own image for free. So it's sort of a community co-op based type website. You can go ahead and buy credits, so you don't have to actually go and vote on other people's things, but it's just sort of helping out the web community. And you can ask a series of questions. And really what it does, the users look at a website for 5 seconds, and then the image is taken off. And then the questions are asked, such as like, what do you think this website's about? What did you notice most about this website? What are some adjectives that you would use to describe this website? Do you want to try one? Okay. All right, I'm going to show this website for 5 seconds. And so I want to hear some feedback as to what you think it might be about, all right? Okay, anyone? What? An art school? Yeah, it was what, advanced visual studies. So visual, something about art. What else?
Something about testing things with the people sitting around the table and having a discussion.
Okay.
Like, what do you think this picture is, or something like that.
All right. So there's some sort of testing.
So research.
Okay. Good. What are some adjectives that you would use to describe the site? Bland. Okay. What else? Not accessible. Okay. Thin. Yeah. This actually was a nominee for the top 10 worst websites of 2013 from webpagesthatsuck.com. One of my favorite websites. Yeah, they could have used a 5-second test. This was basically like, yeah, this looks unfinished. What is this supposed to be? You know, it looks like an art project that somebody just abandoned. That's probably valuable information that people would have needed. But what the heck, we decided to dive in with Georgia Gov and see what people thought of us. When we were first redesigning Georgia Gov, back from the old Yahoo style with 75 links on the page, we came up with a design and we put it up on 5secondtest.com. And I just gave everything away. This is what we put up. We wanted to find out what people thought of. And as you can see, a lot of what's on the current page is there. You see the search bar is pretty relevant, prevalent. Popular topics are over there on the right side. But we want to see what people thought. And these were, the basic question was, what's your overall impression? What are some words to describe this? Oh my God, it's blue. It is very blue, right? And that was clearly the feedback we got. Some of these other things we weren't really sure, because they actually count the words. No, the number 5. I don't know what that means. Right, little. But we sort of knew we were maybe on the right track because there weren't a lot of negative things, but except for blue. We just knew we needed to have some more colors. Based on that feedback, our designer, Christina, put some more color into it, made a couple more tweaks, and then we threw the image back up on 5-second test. This was the feedback we got. That felt so good to see that. I mean, these were really good words that we were hoping we would see. Clean, easy, colors. The word blue isn't even on there anymore. So the changes we made, we knew, were in response to the feedback we got from the first time, and now we were getting some very positive feedback. So with 5-second tests, it's not just that. You can also do things like, you are searching for a new car. Take a look at this website or this web page for 5 seconds, and tell me what you would click on. So there are lots of different scenarios that you can use for 5-second test. I encourage you to go take a look at it and see if there may be some things that you can use on that site to help you out. I want to talk a little bit about accessibility. Nikhil touched on this as well. Accessibility is probably one of the easiest things that you can test for. It's probably one of the hardest things, though, to implement. Some of these other things you can do just through changes to your, so the information architecture. You can actually go into Drupal or whatever your content management system is and make changes to that. With accessibility, a lot of it's based on code. Some CSS. You may actually have to get into the root of some of the code to make some of these changes. But testing, oh my gosh, it's so easy. There are websites that just do it for you. As you know, probably this is federally mandated now. Every federal website has to be accessible. It's called 508 compliance. It's Section 508, I think, of the American Disabilities Act that says now that it has to do this. The federal government, of course, has no control over states in this aspect. And so it basically told the state governments, you can do whatever you want. Well, Georgia has opted to enforce this as well. And so your websites have to be 508 compliant as well. And this is actually what it says in the accessibility standards. If you go to portal.georgia.gov/interactive/ is it standards, Kendra? Or go to portal.georgia.gov/interactive and you'll actually see on the menu item where our policies and standards are. And under accessibility, it says all state of Georgia websites should follow 508 standards in order to provide websites that are accessible. We also go a step further and say you should include minimum standards for accessibility from the W3C, the World Wide Web Consortium. Some of you may know is an independent body worldwide that comes up with standards for how websites should operate. And they have different priorities. Priority 1 is things that you must do in order to have your website be accessible. Priority 2 are things you probably should do. Priority 3, I think, is just things that you might want to consider. We aim at Georgia Gov and with all the Drupal platform to be, of course, 508 compliant and to be priority 1 compliant with the W3C. And again, if you just type in web accessibility test, you'll come up with 20 or 30 different sites. And there's actual Chrome plugins and extensions that you can add to your browser that you can just right-click on any site and see if it's accessible. I mean, it's gotten very easy. But one that I really like is wave.webaim.org because it is so simple. I mean, how much more simple can you get? This is the home page. I wish our homepage looked like that. It's so easy to do. You basically type in a web page address, and you hit enter, and it analyzes based on all of the 508 standards, the W3C standards, whether your website is compliant. I ran Georgia Gov homepage through it. So we have 0 errors, and so that's what we're aiming for. We did find we have 11 alerts. And these are things like the priority 2 and priority 3 compliance that I was telling you about. Things you probably should do or may want to consider doing. Things like that I didn't even know about. That it told us we had 3 links to the same piece of content on our website, to an actual blog post. Well, we have the headline linking to the blog. We have a read more for people who have read the teaser and want to find out more. That links to the full blog post. And then we also have the photo for the blog linked to the blog post as well. They said, yeah, maybe a little too much, because if somebody's using a screen reader or visually impaired, then they're suddenly hearing a lot of different jargon that describes things as this is a link, this is a link, this is a link. So we're probably going to consider narrowing some of those options down so that we don't have as many links to the same piece of content and get rid of some of that. Some other things such as contrast. There's a certain limit between how light something should be on a dark background or how dark something should be on a light background. A little bit of a threshold there. And sometimes we skirt a little bit too closely to that. And so there are some contrast suggestions that they're also saying that we need to look at as well. good tool for figuring out what you need to do, but unless you have a programmer or unless you're finding these things and can have access to the person or developers who are working on your content management system, like us, then it's really hard to fix. So, but you need to do it. This is now mandated, and your site has to be accessible. So yeah, if you came to the last one, I talked a lot about content and mobile and how your content should be mobile friendly, and I'm going to talk about it again because I love talking about content. I'm a journalism major, communications master's, so this is what I do. I edit, I write in my spare time, and I really try to evangelize this as much as possible, especially in government. Make your site readable. I mean, sure, maybe people can find your content, but what if they get to it and they just don't understand it? I mean, what's worse than that? A good site is readable.com, read-able.com, and it works just like that webbing accessibility tool. You have a search field, you type in your URL. There's even a place where you can cut and paste text from your web page and put it in there. Hit submit. It analyzes it based on sentence length, the number of syllables in a word, the length of a paragraph, and then gives you back usually a grade level. Like, this is written for an 8th grade level. This is written for a 5th grade level. This is written for an 18-year-old. And there are lots of different scientific scales that it will also show. The Gunning Fog Index, if you've ever used Microsoft Word, it's got a lot of readability tests on there as well. And we usually try to aim for a 7th to 8th grade level within government. 5th grade level is really good. If you can get your content down to a 5th grade level, that would be amazing. But in government, I mean, even government is a 3-syllable word. So just using that is going to increase the grade level. But we also tend to use things like temporary assistance for needy families and accountability and prioritization. I mean, there's just so many big words that we can't get around. Non-custodial parent. Yeah, and we've racked our brains trying to come up, opening up a thesaurus and trying to find an easier way to say things. So, that's sort of just going to skew your results. But if you can get it to a 7th grade level for government, pretty amazing. Another thing I try to stress is to cut your content in half. That may sound pretty drastic, but remember, people are using a lot of mobile devices now. They're in a hurry. They don't like to read. They just skim stuff. So the shorter you can make it, the better. I had a mentor who was a writer, and told me the story when he was first starting out in radio broadcasting. His editor told him, I want you to write a 1-minute spot for this ad. And he said, okay. So he wrote this really good 1-minute ad. The editor looked at it and said, okay, but sorry, I wanted it to be 30 seconds. It's like, oh, God. So he had to take everything he wrote, whittle it down to 30 seconds. So the editor took another look at it, said, okay, yeah, this is good, but now, actually we've changed our mind now. It just needs to be a 15-second spot. So then he had to take the 30-second spot, turn it into 15. So it can be done. You can say things in a shorter amount of words, in a shorter amount of time. Here is a Medicare fraud letter before Al Gore's big initiative of what was it? What was it called? Plain government? Plain language. Thank you. Before his whole plain language initiative got off the ground, this was the letter that they sent out to people who were, possibly involved in fraud. I won't sit here and read this. You don't really have to read it, but I don't know. My eyes glaze over because contractor overpayments, regulations, policies, and it's also very heavy-handed. I want to meet the person who rewrote this. They may be my soulmate. I love them. We'll take 2 steps to look into this matter. We'll find out if it was an error or fraud, and we'll let you know. Amazing! I mean, it really says the same thing. If you want to know more about it, maybe they could have put, here's a link to our rules and regulations if you want to know more about exactly what this involves. But This is basically what they were trying to say, and you can say it in such fewer words. And so, take a look at your website and see if you can cut the number of words in half. If you've got 500 words on your web page, try to make it 250. Not even try to make it 300. It'd be great. This is what our child support page looks like on Georgia Gov. We have popular topics, and so when people click on child support on the popular topics page, this is what we get. And I talked a lot about this at the last GOVTalks meeting, so I won't get into some of this, but we try to chunk a lot of the content using a lot of bullets, different sections. Every single popular topic looks the same. Things that you should know, FAQs. Try to bold important parts because people tend to scan and they want, bold things catch their eye. This is what we try to do. So I actually took the text of the child support page, put it into readable.com, and this is what we got. So an average grade level of about 8. It should be easily understood by 13 to 14-year-olds. And so you can actually see some of these other things, the Flesch-Kincaid reading ease, and I don't really know exactly how a lot of these are done, but it actually gives you the number of sentences, number of words, number of complex words, and things like birth certificates, social security cards, you can't really get around. We're always trying to, and there's that temporary assistance to needy families again. You can't get around some of that, but if you can make it, like I said, 8th grade level, 7th grade level, you're right on target. That's the end of my spiel. The next part, if you've done your homework, you all were supposed to have done homework and brought it. Pooja Barong is going to come up next and facilitate a session where you're actually going to have some hands-on look at a couple of websites. Heuristic evaluations are basically based on best practices. The things that I've talked about are things that you can do for your specific website. But for your heuristic evaluations, these are things that really every website should have. It's a checklist. It's a list of do's and don'ts. And it's really good for actually grading a website. We've thought about doing this in the past of giving websites a grade based on a heuristic evaluation if you want your website graded. And how do you improve your grades? And what are these easy things that need to be fixed that every single website should have? So the checklist that you got contains these criteria. Pooja will come up after lunch. I know y'all are probably very hungry. We're going to take probably about 15 minutes to just get lunch, start eating, and then it's going to be very informal. We'll go through the sites and see whether the two sites meet the criteria. So I think we're probably over. So if y'all want to have any questions, just come up to me afterwards or during lunch. I'll be happy to talk to you. Thank you.